Ya.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
We are from Group 2. Want to presentation about the comparing and contrasting with the member me Ahmad Rafi.
I am Ismail.
And I, Zahra Mutia Zaskia.
Let's begin our presentation. Introduction. Number one, background. Sometimes the only way to show that you really understand something is to compare it with something else. This is why compare and contrast essay are so popular with tutors and examiner. Two, purpose. To demonstrate how one subject is superior in some way to the other. Number two, to demonstrate how two subjects which appear dissimilar are actually similar. And number three is into informational. Comparing and contrasting are ways of exploring the similarities and difference between two things. Generally speaking, comparing is showing the similarities and contrasting is showing differences between two things that are related in some way. For example, number one, how does its 1978 remake of the invasion of the body's nature differ in its directorial style from the original 1956 film? Number two, compare the psychological impulse that underpin anorexia nervosa and bulimia. Number three is contrast with example in the situation that produce beer and bull market. In answering this type of essay question, we will need to express similarity and difference in a variety of ways. Number one, adjective and adverb. Number two, modifiers with adjective and adverbs. And number three is word on phrases for expressing similarity and contrast. Number one, comparative and superlative adjective and adverb. Adjective is a word used to modify or describe a noun or pronouns. And adverb is a word that is used to modify an adjective, verb, and adverb. There are three forms of adjective and adverb used to show varying degrees of comparison: the positive, the comparative, and the superlative. The positive form is used when there is no direct comparison being made to anything specific, but it's used to offer a broad or general comparison. The comparative form is used when two things are being compared with each other. The superlative form is used when more than two things are being compared with one another. Regular form for one and two syllable word. Positive, no change, big, strong, long, etc. In comparative is a word end in bigger, stronger, longer, etc. And superlative is word in s, biggest, strongest, longest, etc. Regular form from three or more syllable word is positive, no change, understandable, comfortable, etc. Comparative use more understandable, more comfortable, and more. And superlative use most understandable, most comfortable, and no more. Adverbs that end in lie is always used more or most, such as more quickly or most quickly. Remember that these are general rules and many adjectives and adverbs have irregular forms. Number two is comparison with adjective and adverb. The comparison of adjective or adverb is used to compare two or more things, people, or action expressing the equalities or inequalities between them. When we make a comparison using adjective or adverb, we start with the subject to and the verb followed by a comparative and adjective or an adverb followed by then an object. The form of the comparative adjective or adverb differs according to the number one of syllable and the suffix of adjective. For example, one syllable is we add at the end of the word. Claire is the taller than Paula. With suffix e, we add r nice. Example is Annie is nicer than him. And with one vowel and one consonant, we double the consonant and add a thin. Carl is thinner than Paul. To syllable, the example like with suffix is y become I, and we add a hungry. Claire is hungrier than Paula. Two or more without suffix y. We add more before the adjective or adverb tired. Claire is more tired than Paula. Notes. We can omit that when we know from the context when what the first noun is compared to lately dividends are less popular. Number 3 is comparison with comparative adjective and adverb. Adjective and adverb have forms called comparative and superlative that are used for comparison. Use the comparative form when comparing to items, people, places, or ideas. Use the superlative when comparing more than two. For short adjective with one syllable or two syllable ending in y or t, and one syllable adverb at the ending er for the comparative and is for the superlative. Change y to I if the y is preceded by a consonant. I see, I hear, I sees. Generally, that the use is used before the superlative form. The example is word short, comparative is shorter, and superlative is shortest. Word in practice, pretty, in comparative prettier, and superlative prettiest. And in simple is in comparative simpler, and superlative is simplest. And word fast is comparative faster, and superlative is fastest. With longer adjective with adverb ending in like at more or most not. Less and least are used with adjective of any length such as bright, less bright, less bright. Like a word intelligent, comparative more intelligent, and superlative most intelligent. Carefully in comparative more carefully, and superlative most carefully. And dangerous is comparative less dangerous, and superlative is less dangerous. If you cannot decide whether to use an er or is for form or more or most, consult a dictionary if there is an er is form. The dictionary will say so. Note: do not use the er form with more or the is from with the most. Faulty. The first form was more better than the second, and revise is the first form was better than the second. Irregular form. The following are irregular, comparative, and superlative form. Word good, in comparative better, and superlative best. Word bad, comparative worse, and superlative worse. In the word is much or money. In comparative is more, and superlative most. In word well, comparative is better, and superlative is best. In the word badly, comparative worse, or superlative worse. Using then with comparative form to compare to people, places, object, or ideas, use the comparative form with the word then. If you use a comparative form in your sentence, you need then to let your reader know what you are comparing with what. Faulty discourse of action is more efficient. The device is discourse of action is more efficient than the previous one. Comparative form are also used without then in an idiomatic way. Example, the hardest he tries, the more satisfied he feels. The more, the merrier. Number 4 is gonna speak by Ismail.
Okay, thank you, Rafi. Next, number 4 is comparison with superlative adjectives and adverbs. V plus superlative adjective or adverb is used to rank things, people, or place in a group of three or more. Example: the turnout for the referendum on the euro was the lowest ever recorded. The point is the lowest of all turnouts. A possessive noun or pronoun sometimes replaces the. Example: Eurobank's dynamic new CEO, Carol Midgell, is their strongest asset. V can be left out before a superlative adverb or when a superlative adjective comes after the noun it refers to. Example: Literally, he'll now cause on the sector of the company it is growing V less quickly. Or which department is the most productive? Uh, when present and past participles act as adjectives, they can follow superlative. Example: the earliest recorded evidence of an earthquake was traced back to 1831 BC in eastern China. Or the mobile phone company Oxygen claimed that the Apple phone were its fastest selling product of all time. You can use second, third, fourth, not first, before superlative. Example, the pronghorn antelope is considered to be world's second fattest animal after the cheetah. Next. Now, the superlatives are normally followed by number one of before periods of time and for specifying the group of things being compared. Example, according to folklore, uh, 12th January, St. Hilary's Day is the coldest day of the year in the UK, or ExxonMobil is the most profitable of the multinational corporation listed by Forbes. Number two, in before singular group nouns, the class, the team, or the family. Example, Dr. Park is the most experienced person in the team. Number three, in or on as appropriate, not of before words describing place or areas. In the world, in the UK, in the east, on the coast, on the river, etc. Example, the driest place in the world is in Antarctica, in an area called the Dry Valleys, which has seen no rain for nearly 2 million years. The Preluna Hotel is the tallest building on the seafront at Slima in Malta. Tip: in formal context, the superlative without V may simply mean very. Example, the conclusion of the study was not surprising. Next. Number five, modifying adjectives and adverbs. Comparative adjectives and adverbs are sometimes modified, uh, made stronger, weaker, or more precise. Example, startup companies face certain difficulties, but while some of these uh, agree similar across all industries, other hit manufacturing business much harder than service enterprises. What are phrases that modify as blah 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 as blah blah blah? Structures include just, emphasize the equality, almost or nearly, not quite or its opposite, not nearly, twice, three times, four times, etc. Example, writing a good report can take almost as long as carrying out the market research itself. Number two, feed track, thought successful is not quite as profitable a company as its competitors. Fitrex is slightly less profitable than its competitors. Building costs under the new designs are not nearly as high as under the old designs. The costs are much lower. With some modifications to the operating theater, producers could be carried out twice as quickly as before. Uh, Words or phrases that modify structures within include much, a great deal, far, considerably, etc., or their opposites slightly, a little, marginally, etc. Example, significantly, it became far easier to obtain credit in the 1990s that is than it was before. Uh, Swanson Place is marginally more successful in the high-tech sector than its competitors. Next. You can also use three times, four times, etc. and percentage, but note that we would normally say twitch as heavy as rather than two times heavier than. Example, steel is three times heavier than aluminum. Growth is expected to be 0.5% higher in the quarter than the ELDA. Tip, you can modify twice, three times, etc. themselves with word and phrases such nearly more than, slightly more than, exactly, or approximately. Example, exactly, twice as many patients were treated in the same periods last year as this year. Experts believe that the material entering the Earth's atmosphere was moving more than 3 times faster than was predicted last week. To modify superlative, you can use one of almost or nearly, by far, or easily. Example, the Nile is one of Africa's longest rivers. Arctic Sea is melted as almost its fastest pace in 2020 and 10. Bob Hawke is by far the longest serving Labour Prime Minister in Australia. Next. Okay, the next is Zahra.
Okay, thank you, Ismail. So the next slide is words and phrase for expressing similarity. The first is the same, used to express similarity. Example, cats and dogs have almost the same capacity to be domesticated and used to connector. Example, when they are observed, people don't behave in the same way as they do in private. 2. Similar, similarity, and similarly. The adjective similar is followed by to when things are linked with common features and by being before describing the quality that things share. Example, Venus is quite similar to Earth in mass and size. Venus and Earth are quite similar in mass and size. The noun similarity is used with between to compare two things and within to describe a shared quality. Example, the main similarity between the Senate and the House of Representatives is that both houses are directly elected. There was a similarity in the approach taken to the crisis by all three companies. The adverb similarly can also be used. Smoke is damaging trees in the mountains of South China. Similarly, acid rain is harming forests in the north of the country, or blah 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 South China. Acid rain is similarly harming forests. Next, like, and likewise. Like means the same as similar and is normally used with the verb be after the things being compared. Example, France and Germany are like in that both support a thriving rental sector in their housing markets. Like is also used with be, but between the things being compared. France is like Germany in that dang dang dang, and it is also used quite often on its own. Example, dolphins like porpoise breathe through blowholes on the top of their heads. Likewise, it's used just like similarly. Likewise, acid rain is dang dang dang. 7. Words and phrase for expressing contrast. The first is different, differ, and difference. The adjective different and the verb differ normally follow the two things being compared. The first, after working for several months with fellow chemist Evans, Sheng took a different path toward their goal. And second, the approach taken by the two companies are different or differ in the Brennan and Smith over an ecological sustainable solution. Difference is used with between to compare two things. In plus noun might be added to specify the context. Example, Parker explored the key difference between leadership and management in a series of seminars held in New York in early 2010. Now, research from Brown University has identified the difference in chewing between mammals and fish. Next, in contrast to, contrary to, and unlike. For the example, 1. An exit poll in contrast to or contrary to or unlike an opinion poll asks members of the public to reveal how they have just voted. 2. In contrast to or contrary to or unlike earlier studies, Professor Cadogan's report found that cholesterol measures in middle or old age show no link to dementia. Next, on the contrary, in contrast, on the other hand, these are linked expressions that connect contrasting statements, not, however, that while on the contrary contradicts an element of the previous statement, in contrast and the other hand linked to different but true situation. For the example, 1. Selecting the right PR company is by no means easy. On the contrary, contradict easy, it may involve a great deal of research. 2. The 1989 earthquake in the Santa Cruz Mountains occurred during an exceptionally dry period, preventing any large-scale landslides. In contrast, or on the other hand, the Great 1906 earthquake occurred after an unusually wet winter. Thank you.
Okay, that's all from us. Thanks for your attention and it's end. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.